right. Well, I'm here with the one and only, one of my favorite people in the world. And that's not a joke or just blowing smoke. That is the truth, Chris North. What's up, dude?
I actually don't know that I'm the one and only.
The one and only.
I've really never done that research. So we might have started this out just on a lie, right?
On a lie from the beginning.
Yeah. Which, can only go up from here then.
That's what we do here on the Kings and Priests podcast is lie. So I'm excited for a couple reasons. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm excited to have you on the podcast because you have always been, honestly, just such a wealth of wisdom for me. Like you're someone that I can talk stuff out with. And even a couple weeks ago, we sat down for a few hours and I just said, hey, let me tell you everything going on in my life and help me. So I'm
glad that that's how you saw that, because I thought that was therapy for me.
Yeah. It's just hanging out, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And is this another human in real life?
Yeah. I'm also excited because you're in LA right now. And,
I am.
You left us here on the West Coast. You left us high and dry in the middle of a pandemic to go to greener pastures.
Yeah, the greener pastures of New York City. I'm having images of all of the Instagram feed of like the what is New York.
Yes.
Of just like rats carrying a briefcase down the street. And it's like, yes, greener pastures.
Yeah, greener pastures,
of course.
Exactly. But we live like pretty much in the same neighborhood when you're in LA. Well, we did live in the same neighborhood. So I don't know, man. I'm just excited.
It's true.
I'm excited to talk to you.
It's true. It's the best neighborhood in LA.
The best neighborhood in LA. So Chris, here's the thing, man. You do you do a lot of different things. And why don't you just you are an executive coach with an incredible company called Novus Global. You're a film producer. You're an investor, I believe. So give me the quick, Who is Chris North?
No, I think you just did.
Okay.
I think that about sums it up. Those are all the things that I'm really excited to be a part of. I think and I want to make it, you and I are going to talk for a little while, and that'll be fun. And I think anytime I do something like this, I think I have the end user in mind who's listening to this and how can make it valuable for them. So if somebody's listening, they're going I don't care. I just why, who is this? And so I really hope that this is valuable to them too. So I'll share as openly and honestly as possible. Yeah. So I would say that the primary thing that I'm up to right now in career wise is definitely executive coaching. And I have the honor and privilege of getting to lead alongside of other coaches in that firm. And so the firm is approximately 7 years old ish. I came on, I was a little bit late, maybe the runt of the litter, so to speak. And I joined in 2018 and we've been cranking really hard since then. I think the firm has doubled in size at least once, or if not twice, maybe 3 times. It's gotten to the point where I quit counting. And why that's important, I think, to even say is just because of community. And while the work is a lot of fun and the clients are amazing and results are in and all of that, I think what I really love is that I get to do that alongside other people rather than just in a vacuum alone, hanging out my little first name, last name.com coach or whatever. I get to join all these powerhouses that quite frankly scare me. They're a bit intimidating, and which is probably why I took so long to join, if I'm honest. But finally joined them in 2018, and it has been a lot of fun, especially in these last probably 2-3 years, but definitely, or 2 years, but especially in the last year has been a lot of fun. So that's the main thing that I'm up to. I think that takes the majority of my time, working with companies, working with individuals, working with entrepreneurs. Now primarily working more so on the internal side. I have a lot of clients obviously, but more so working with the coaches on our team to develop and create skill and train new coaches and do business development and things like that. So that's been a lot of fun for me. And that's new. And I'm still fumbling my way through a lot of that and getting it right and getting it wrong. and everything in between. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I want
And then there's
to
the film stuff and all
film
my
stuff.
playgrounds.
You've done some tech. You've done some tech investing, right? Did I make that up?
A little bit. Yeah, well, no, I mean, it makes me sound a lot cooler than I am. Somebody came to me with an opportunity about a year and a half ago now, and a good friend of mine said, "Hey, there's this tech company starting up, and they're doing friends and family round before there's like the pre-seed round, and
the ultra risky round."
Yeah, the like I hope you have money to burn type of thing, and I didn't have a ton, but I had just a little bit, and we went in on that together, and that's created some really interesting opportunities and cultivated some relationships that I'm really excited about. So there's that piece, and then the other one is the film side. So I own a small film production company, and we do we're going. I actually have a meeting tomorrow. We're going through a bit of a revamp of that whole thing. I mean, we started that in 2008. No, that's a lie. 2014. We started that in 2014.
Okay.
That's what it was. But in 2008 is when I really decided that I'm like, I want to make movies. I want to move to LA. And
that was me in 2009. You were a year ahead of me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, well, I didn't actually make it happen until, I didn't even get to LA until almost 2011.
Okay.
And so, and then that's a whole story in itself. I didn't finally start the company until 2014. And this might be of interest to people listening, especially if there's entrepreneurs or anybody starting things or running things on the side. The reason I started that was because nobody would hire me.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. I mean, I had zero authority or credibility. And I was like, well, who's going to hire me to be a producer when I don't know the first thing about anything? Yeah. So I figured, I did what any idiot would do and started my own company and said, well, I am a producer now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so
the beautiful thing about that is there's not a lot of careers that you can do that. And being a producer is one of those, you know what I mean? Especially in LA, especially in that era where it is just like, hey, I make movies. I'm a producer. Let's do it. I did the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you inevitably get the question of, have you done anything I would have seen, which is just the best question.
The best answer, Nelly, is like, I got a lot of stuff in development. I got a lot of stuff that I'm developing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's what I've never said that, and I wish I would have had it like 10 years ago. So so right now, I have a lot of things in development.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, okay. Here's the thing about producing, and I know this because I moved out here and did the same thing. I worked for a independent film producer, and the thing about being a producer is you literally have to figure out a way to create something from nothing. I mean, it is basically the 0 to 1 type job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about, I don't know, like what made you want to do that, and like what did you learn in that process?
Yeah. Small questions like that. Like, what did I learn in that process?
Yeah. What did you learn in the whole process of
flashbacks of, so what made me want to do that? We'll start with what made me want to do it. I think I was coming off, it was 2008. I had just, I had originally played music, and I thought I wanted to be in a rock and roll band and tour. And
I didn't know that.
That was about as fun. Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness. But, that didn't work out. Even though I was amazing at it, I was so good.
It was bad luck. It was bad luck.
It was, real bad luck, because I was probably the best there was. Basically I was terrible at it, and it didn't work out for me. But I really did start asking myself the questions: what do I love about music, and why do I love it? And so it's 2008, and I started asking myself questions like, what do I love about this? And the question led me to, I love that it's collaborative. I love that it's creative, and I love that you put something out into the world. And at the time, I had always planned on living in Los Angeles. I don't know why. It was just kind of one of those siren calls from the time I was young. And so I started thinking, I was like, man, I was 20, I think 24 at the time. And I was like, what is in Los Angeles that is creative and collaborative, and that you actually put a product out into the world, like you put out like an album or something like that. I was like, what was the equivalent? And apps were fairly new at the time, and so I was like thinking like maybe tech, or maybe I can be an app developer or something like this. I mean, and it was well, this is a faith podcast, right? We can talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was sitting and I was reading. I don't think I've ever shared this story publicly, so we'll just we'll see if I have a vulnerability hangover in the morning. But I was sitting and I was reading, I think it was Psalm 18, and I was in a Bible school at the time that I eventually got kicked out of.
Listen, that's a rite of passage for any good Christian that's going to do anything in the world has to get kicked out of a Bible college at some point.
Yeah, at some point. But and God bless them, I actually learned a lot from them. And I don't know, it wasn't because I was necessarily right. Even though I was right, I was really wrong in the way I was going about it. So props to them. They probably made the right move for my arrogant 24-year-old self. So anyway, I was reading, I was doing the homework. I think we had to read through all of Psalms and memorize and things like that. So I was in Psalm 18, and I was reading it maybe for the first time, and I was reading through, and I was experiencing the scene as if I was watching a movie, and I said under my breath, I was like, man, somebody needs to make a movie of this. And that was a moment that I will never forget, that in no uncertain terms, I felt you do that, like, go for it. Like, yeah, you make movies. And I slowly closed my book and walked over to the window and stared out the window pensively for about an hour, going like, my whole life just changed. I know I'm moving to Los Angeles. I know I'm going to be involved in entertainment. And I didn't know the first thing about any of that. So that was in 2008, and it still was about 2.5 or so more years before I even made that move. And then probably another 2 to 3 years before I ever got on a set for the very first time. And so I was skipping a lot of details there, but that was what made me want to get into it. And then the second question was what I learned. And by the way, I've had I don't know if you've heard of these. I've had a Zoa Plus energy drink right before.
I've never seen that before. What is that?
This is, so it's called Zoa Plus. It is like a healthy pre-workworkout. And I'm not planning on working out.
I was about to say, are you working out tonight?
Not as far as I know, although, but I just love it. I think it's like healthy energy.
I need to check that out, man. I've gotten in the bad habit of getting, there's about a block away from here, there's a gas station that is always stocked up with sugar-free Red Bulls.
Oh.
And that is my shameful mid-afternoon.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. You know what? You send me your address and I'll send you a case. I think you can pretty much only get them on Amazon right now.
Okay.
Anyway, so all that to say, if I'm all over the place and have ADD a little bit more and talk more than normal, you can just be like, Chris, shut up.
I have
another question.
That's great. Dean, who I usually do these with, who's my co-host, there are many times where I can just see in his face him staring at me, just going like, dude, get on with it. I don't know what you're trying to say, but ask the question and let's move on. So
yeah, hopefully people are listening to this in double speed so we can redeem at least some of their time.
Exactly. So you learned through all of it. What'd you learn? And then I want to get to some more spiritual stuff, and then I want to dig into what you do for a living and all of that. I always compare you to Wendy Rhodes from the TV show Billions, which is kind of amazing because you haven't seen that show, right? We've talked about this before.
Oh, I have seen that show.
Oh, you have seen this? Okay.
Yeah, I have seen it. It was like you know how you have like required reading in school or something? It was like when I joined the firm, there was like this subtle undertone of like, watch that show.
Got it. Watch
it. It wasn't required, but it was definitely like everybody was talking about it, and I felt left out. So I watched season 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very Wendy Rhodes-ish, only for many companies.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of the way it goes.
Okay, so you're in LA. You sort of you kind of just through, I don't know, like white knuckled and hard worked your way into being a producer.
We could say that. I think I'm gonna tell honest stories maybe for the first time. I did not white knuckle and work my way into being a producer. I white knuckled and worked when the opportunities were there. And I almost like, I want to give credit where it's due, which is like,
Hmm.
I'll take some of it. And then like, if I'm honest, it was like lots of prayer, lots
Hmm.
of prayerful,
Hmm.
like, this is really like, I have to just be honest with it. I mean, we would, one of my best friends, CJ, is probably in the next room right now. We're hanging out later tonight, and we would do walks. And at the time, I was like, let's say, I want to use the word homeless carefully, but like, because I never slept outside,
Right.
and but I lived in my car for quite a while. I lived on a boat. That was an interesting story. Basically couldn't afford an actual place to live, and so he and I and a few others were homeless really together at the time. So we'd bounce around to different places
Dang.
and couch surf and do whatever we could, and that was a really special time. But we would do these prayer walks, and we would walk in the hills in a particular neighborhood, and we would literally we'd make a list of all the things that were going on in life that we wanted prayer for. And then we would just walk and pray out loud over those things,
Wow.
and make declarations over our futures and over each other.
Hmm.
And then we'd stop and listen uh, and see what we were hearing, if anything.
It's so
And
cool.
those were really rich times. And over time, we'd get to celebrate. And there was times, man, where we'd make a list, and then of things that felt like impossible situations. And then we were doing it, say, like on Tuesdays. I don't remember what it was exactly. But by the time we'd get there the next Tuesday, we'd look back at that list and be like, oh my gosh, that was solved by like the weekend. We didn't even,
Dang.
it was like a whole new list.
Yeah.
And so it really was like, I think the community of it, and then having that celebration,
Mm.
and those walks were life. And we still do those every once in a while, although both of us are extremely busy now. And we still try to get them in, once every quarter, maybe,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, doors just began opening, and opportunities were small at first. It was my very first opportunity was my friend Jordan Owen. He's a director here in LA. Invited me to set one day. He said, "Hey, I can pay you $50 to drive downtown and get a printer, and then bring it to set." And so I did that, and I came back, and it was a big music video set from an artist that we all know, and I'd never actually seen a set before, and I was like, whoa. I
Hmm.
was like, okay. I was really really excited about that, and I dropped off the printer and said, well, what do I do now? And the general tone was, well, now get out of here, scram. I
Leave.
said, well, you guys pay me $50, like, I'm here for the day,
I want some craft services, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, I didn't know craft services was a thing. I was like, they feed you too? Like, you get snacks?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So one day turned into two, turned into a relationship, and turned into a lot of learning. And that's the craft side of things. I learned the craft. It's probably a less interesting conversation to anybody listening of like what skills I picked up along the way. I think what's probably more interesting, if I'm honest, is the inner work, and the like who I became in that process, and what
Hmm.
were some of the core tenets that quite frankly I still like live into today,
Hmm.
that has been principles
Yeah. Give us
for
just
life.
give us
So
one of those. If you were to, if I was just to put you on the spot and say what are one of those, what would that be?
yeah, ooh, I'll pick a favorite. Um, I don't work for a living anymore.
Mm.
Uh, is there's a couple of verses, I think Joel, and then in the New Testament somewhere. This is how you know you're not talking to a pastor. He's like, I know no addresses. It says that the just are like
Just quoting scripture from chapters and verses that don't even exist, you know?
yeah, yes, yeah. I'm not going to take those risks. I was like, I'm going to take the bait for a joke, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Don't do it, Chris. Don't do it. Yeah, that's how that works. And it says, it's like talking about the just will live by faith, and
Mm-hmm.
and that could be taken probably in lots of different contexts. But for me, there was a particular one where it's like you read something and you've heard it and everything, and there was all of a sudden it stood out to me in a different way because I was trying to figure out how to make a living, and And it goes, the just will live by faith. And I was like, okay, well, that's adorable. Thanks a lot. What does this mean? And really, if I unfold that, is it began to go like, if I don't make a living, if I don't work for a living, then why do I work? And then I realized that work is a blessed experience. Work is fruitful. Work is amazing, and it's really lovely. And that pivoted some things for me. It's like, okay, well then, financially, specifically, what happens is there's a great quote that I love, and it says, I don't give because I have because I give. And so it's like, well, why do I work? And it's like, for the money and element of it is I work for seed to sow. So the living that I was making, the money that I was making, I began being generous with. And this feels really vulnerable to share, especially publicly, but I just started being generous. And a lot of that had to do with my coaching, because he's like, well, who do you want to be? And not what do you want to do, not what do you want to have. It was really like, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be a generous person. And so, and that's interesting to do when you don't have any money. And so I started, I just chose that I was going to be a generous person. I started giving, and lo and behold, some things started shifting and changing. And I would say, so yes, for one of the core principles, I think one of the core principles is I don't give because I have because I give. And that's not just money. That's opportunity. That's relationship. That's, I think, in a lot of ways, wisdom. That one I have because I ask. I'm like, God, please help, help. So that's one of those is that I don't work for a living. I really do work for seed to sow, and keeps things honest for me.
Man, that's awesome. And generosity, man, it plays such a massive role. Like it's crazy because like anyone can be generous, right? Whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, you can be generous. But there's something about the generous Christian, like you said, in every area of our life that like unlocks something in our life, right? And not to be like Mr. Prosperity Gospel guy, because that's not the way that I mean it. But I think there is something about the world of the generous getting larger and larger.
Yeah.
And
it's really
like
true.
that cliche thing to say, but it's like, it is an unignorable principle in the scriptures that when you put that to work with a right motive, like the return is pretty shocking. At least I've found in my life, you know? Yeah,
I have too. And there's a really good article that has helped me a lot, actually. It's on our website. Actually, go to it if you're listening to this. But one of the things on there is that I've really loved is Jason, who's the CEO and probably the main driving creative force in the firm, at least for this one specifically, was he created there was an article, and in that article, he created like an acronym for generosity, and it was ROCKETS. And so can I share what?
Yeah, go for it.
That it's like. How are you generous? And you can go check out the article, but it's it stands for generous in your relationships, your opportunities. C is for cash.
That's the tough one.
With your cash.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes not. Sometimes it depends on where you're at. I think is sometimes it's easy to just give money to a thing, but then not have to create opportunities or relationship with people.
Right. So true.
And so I think they change. I think that the challenge shifts for people as different things become available to them. So it might be really easy to be generous with a relationship, but hard to let go of money. And then eventually that as you work up into different echelons of and hierarchies of work and things like that, it could be easy to give cash away and really stingy with relationships. So and
That's true.
I think this is why I like this. The acronym is because it gives me a pulse on where I'm at any point in time. So if R is relationships, O is opportunities, C is cash, K is knowledge, E is energy, time is T, and then skills. So relationships, opportunities, cash, knowledge, energy, time, and skills.
It's really good.
And you can be generous with any one of those things at any point in time, and you can be stingy with any one of those at any point in time. So his article on that is on Novus.global on the website, and it really was a shift for me. I think it's kind of an old article, or at least it's an old principle that I learned from him a long time ago, and I really
That's great.
have enjoyed that. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Generosity. That's a principle.
I want to get to some of the Novus stuff in a second.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I'm going to shut this door because someone's showing up here, and I just don't want it to be loud. Hang on one second.
Well, I'll entertain people in the meantime with some jokes that I've learned recently. Let's see.
Okay.
No. Oh, well, I was just about to tell some jokes in the meantime.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you're back because
this is now
didn't have any.
This is your moment to be the comedian. Okay, so I want to get there in a second because you do coach a lot of high performers, very successful people, people that if we said their names, everybody would know them. And I don't say that to like, kind of try and like tease. I mean it in a sense of like there are a wide variety of coaches these days. And I want to talk about that in a second. But before we get to that, let's talk about some spiritual stuff. So one of the things that I love about you and that I've actually been very aware since you and I met, it's probably been 4 years ago or so. Every time we've talked, most of the time it's about things like business. You always bring it back and always help me come back, which is funny because I'm the pastor. Thanks, man. I'm the pastor. And you're always helping me come back to like, what does God want? What is God saying? Which I love. So here's a couple things I've noticed about you, and then I just want you to talk. Here's some things I've noticed about you, Chris. But number one, there's
vulnerable. Go ahead. Go for it.
There's that I've learned from you. There's not a part of your life that you do not allow God to completely infiltrate. So when it comes to your business, when it comes to your finances, when it comes to the city you're going to live in, you are one of these people that doesn't just like say you talk to God. You really do like listen for God's direction and then move at that. So and here's a connection that I'm even just making talking about this. What that has done is it's made you confident in who God has made you and where God has brought you. And sort of the success or the environments that he's put you in. So even recently we were talking and it was sort of like you found yourself in this situation that was like, oh my gosh, this is like that situation that I always dreamed I would be in. And then you kind of were like, but I kind of always knew I'd be here. Oh, and by the way, here's like the next version of what that will look like to go to the next level. And it wasn't out of like arrogance. It wasn't out of like weird ambition. The sense that I got was it was out of a like deep understanding of who God has called you to be and what God has called you to do. Talk to me about what that journey has been like to really walk with God and ask the questions and follow his leading. And how has that like made you more confident in like doing the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for saying all that. It's I'll receive it is a term that we say a lot. I receive that. It's hard to receive, or it's challenging.
Yeah.
A lot of people will take such kind words. And so I'll honor your compliments. Thank you.
You'll honor my honor. Honor my honor.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So taking the questions a little more one at a time is like, what's that been like? I think it's been like, I think it's been a very normal journey as anybody else. Lots of ups and downs and challenges and wins and losses and swings and misses. And I think there was a thing that gosh, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was like Mike Bickle years ago from IHOP. I was listening to a podcast, and I don't know. I don't want to miscredit. But somebody somewhere said, if you put yourself there, you have to keep yourself there. And what they were talking about in the context was promotion and prestige or whatever it was, like income. If you put yourself there solely by yourself, then you keep yourself there. And that statement felt like burnout, immediate, like a loss of energy from me. And then the subsequent statement was, if God puts you there, then he keeps you there, or he doesn't.
Right.
And and that's and now, like any one of those statements can be weaponized against ones for, it's like I could be like, well, not my responsibility now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not, and so here the heart in that is that while I was working really, really hard, and while I was praying hard, and while I was just trying to fumble my way through, it's like, what's it been like? It has been the ups and downs, and I think it's made the ups, instead of the fruit of a really good win feeling like arrogance and entitlement. I think every time I get a really good win based on that, it fuels humility and gratitude rather than the opposite. And every time that there's a loss, which there has been many, a perceived loss, filtered through the like I'm good, it has eased the blow of being anxious or any of that. So like the fear it's not been absent, but it has been muted, I will say. And just time over time of seeing the other side, I think has given me. And then you said something about like, how does that make me more confident? I said, well, I'm confident in, I think it's an interesting question. I think confidence is a lag indicator of courage. People oftentimes say they want more confidence. Well, confidence comes from doing something or knowing. And
as they say in Texas, like getting some skins on the wall, right? Like, it's like, I think it's like TD, like something TD Jakes has always said is like, you gain confidence by going out and killing something and bringing it home to eat, like you accomplish something. You have the courage to go do something, which then makes you more confident to do it again, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's the opposite of that as well, which is it comes from doing something and falling so flat on your face that and failing so miserably, and sometimes publicly, that the getting back up again and going again and doing it again, confidence can come from there as well, because you really are like swing and a miss, and that's okay. And swing and a hit's great. I mean, that'll boost you as well. But really what we're talking about is, especially somebody listening who's like an entrepreneur, or like wondering if that's like, I want more confidence to X, Y, Z. It's like, cool. You probably don't need confidence yet. What you probably need is courage. And it's a thing that I learned in the firm from John Roberts, who's one of the coaches, one of the partners at the firm, is the difference between confidence and courage, and how confidence often comes after courage. But it's the courage that the confidence that people are looking for is on the other side of courage. And so that principle is probably another principle that I adhere to regularly in stepping out and taking some risks and finding out really what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. Right. But at least we're going to go after it and try it. So
no, that's awesome.
These are some things I've learned.
Some things you've learned along the way. That's amazing, man. So switching gears a bit to, what you do now, talk to me about the difference between, and you and I have talked about this a lot, you hear like executive coach, oftentimes like the executive coach or the life coach is really mixed up. Nowadays, anyone with an Instagram account and, some quotes from a book they read can be a coach, a life coach.
Sure.
What you guys do is very different than that. You guys work with executives, you work with executive teams. Maybe just talk about like the difference between, I don't know, give us just like a quick overview of like, what does Novus do? What's the perspective that you guys bring to the table? And like, yeah, man, just talk about the differences there.
Yeah, I always want to be careful talking about this because because people can hear it through the lens of good, bad, right, wrong,
Hmm.
better, worse,
Hmm.
and I really want to I want to talk about it with a ton of honor on every side because there's I'm sure there's wrong ways to do it, but you
Hmm.
probably nobody uh, that's committed to doing it wrong is listening to this podcast. So,
Right. Right. We
so
hope
like
not.
yeah, yeah. And so I really wanted, I want to speak about it, people who are doing it differently than me, honorably, and so or differently than us. And so I will, but I think some of the key differences between what we do at Novus and what I've even done in the past, or a lot of us have done in the past before joining the firm, and what no doubt people are out there doing now, is doing it in a tribe or in a team, and in a company.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of life coaches, executive coaches who are uh, out there on their own, doing it on their own,
Hmm.
and um, maybe there's uh, maybe they have an assistant or whatever. But
Hmm.
most of the people that I meet that are doing this uh, outside of our ecosystem are really out there on their own.
Hmm.
And pros and cons. The pro is you keep all your money. The pro
Right.
is no one tells you what to do. You don't have to submit to any culture.
Hmm.
You don't have to submit to any leadership. Um, Lots of
You're
independence.
saying things that entrepreneurs don't like to hear. Words like submit and leadership that is beyond,
Uh,
which that I feel like that's going to take us down a whole
ha,
different rabbit trail.
yeah,
But
well, we can talk about mutual submission and its opposite if we were
right,
if we want to
right,
do that.
right.
Hey, listen, entrepreneurs, it's like, yeah, we don't want to submit to anybody else. Well, you can live like that, and there's prices and payoffs to everything.
Hmm.
And part of what we do is I don't mind submitting when there's vision in place that's really beautiful.
Hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I was talking to Jason, the founder and CEO, the other day about submission, and he's like, and he's like, I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm like a rogue. I'm a little different, and and that's probably how I get in my own way, to be honest. But I was sharing with him, like, Jay, submission around here is not the way that we think about it in the world. I mean, I don't know what, this is me not knowing my Bible again, but it's the submit to one another. It's
Hmm.
usually talked about in
Submit
marriage.
yourself
It's
to
like
one. Yeah.
husband submit to your wife.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And submit, that's there's not a chapter break there. It goes like submit to one another.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is it's like, what's the opposite? If I'm not submitting, that means that I'm trying to dominate over.
Hmm.
Either I'm coming under or I'm above. And what's really beautiful about a team of people who are mutually submitting in different ways and in different spaces, and having honest dialogue about when is appropriate to submit to one another in leadership,
Hmm.
that's everybody coming underneath one another, and that's what creates rise in an organization. That's what
Hmm.
creates rise in a family. I think in a marriage, and if we're constantly trying to be above one another and one up, and not in like a healthy competition way, but trying to dominate, that means that
Hmm.
all we're doing is it's a race to the bottom. We're trying to
Hmm.
get above rather than support.
Hmm.
And I feel incredibly supported by a community of coaches and support teams and staff and the whole thing. And so what's I think different about us is that we are a team of coaches, a team of like the operations side of things. There's there really is it's a team.
Hmm.
And so we'll go into corporate a lot of times, and we'll actually be a team working with their teams rather than
Hmm.
just an individual working with teams.
Hmm.
And then there's some side benefits of that, which is that I can touch way more lives
Right.
together than I ever could alone. So I'll create a contract that has 10, 12 people in it, where that would be a full practice for me. I'm done. I'm tapped out. Well, now I
Hmm.
can go create 5 or 10 of those
Hmm.
and touch hundreds of people, and rather than just me alone, because
Hmm.
the other coaches that are are coming into support. So that's a little bit of the difference in probably in logistics and setup. And then there might be some differences in philosophies and things like that. I think if anybody's interested in that, that's probably a longer and deeper conversation that any one of the coaches would be happy to have. So.
Well, I think just on that point of submission, one thing that we talk a lot about on the podcast is, especially in today's world, 2022, this idea of like the domineering entrepreneur who's just takes over, wins, builds at all costs. Like that kind of like the idea of a Christian being an entrepreneur is really kind of just like, who am I serving? Whether that's through a product, whether that's through a service, which kind of at the end of the day is submission. I mean, if your business is going to be successful, it has to serve the needs of somebody else.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's really easy as a business owner. We talk a lot about this, about that idea of like the founder. Most of the time, if you're gonna start a company, you're very headstrong. You have a very strong opinion on like why the product you're building is really needed. But oftentimes that keeps us from actually like hearing the customer and what they want and they need, and kind of remembering like, like my job is actually to serve you, and either through the product or service that I'm giving, like make your life better. So in a way, it's kind of all submission anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, at some point we're all choosing what we submit to. It's just a matter of choosing things that are actually aligned with where we want to go and what's going to get us there. And I think that's true. You're always submitting, even if it's clients, customers, employees, employers, all of that. There's submission in places. So I think submission is beautiful when it's done as a choice,
right?
An intentional choice based in vision for where you want to go and what you want to build together. That's what I think is just, that's where the lightning is. That's where the fireworks are.
That's so true. Okay. So give us some trade secrets, give us some stories. These folks that you coach, so you're around a lot of very, very successful people. You coach these people, you're in, very like, across all kinds of spheres, whether that's entertainment, whether that's business and entertainment, even ministry. You've kind of run the gamut of people who are sports, a little bit, who are high performers, high achievers. If you were to give me like a couple traits, a couple of things that you notice about these folks, what are they? And then on the flip side, give me a couple of the, I don't know, like internal shadow side or struggles that you kind of see, again, without giving away anything specific, but like, I don't know, like weigh one of those against one another.
Yeah. Thanks for teeing that up. That's a pretty easy question. The more curious, the more successful I've found. And it's a platitude answer that I'd invite people as they hear it to really get, to open up with, to hear and to listen to and go, what does that even mean? Insofar as the more successful person people that I get to encounter, executive level CEOs, people who are even the board members and chair people above those CEOs who put them in place a lot of times or keep them in place. The humility factor is really something special. And so what I mean by that is coachability, being willing to be wrong. This is the game changer, is being willing to be wrong. And it's so interesting. People, I'm totally willing to be wrong. It's so funny.
It's really hard to put into practice.
Would you be willing to be wrong about how willing to be wrong you are?
Right.
And that's where it gets really fun. So I think the primary thing for like, what are some of the things that I just noticed time and time again is an open curiosity around what we don't know. And I was talking to a leader maybe a few weeks ago who was committed to being right. They were absolutely right about a certain topic. And I mean, like, and I was like, "Are you out?" He was like, "What do we do when I know I'm right?" I said, "That's the time that is the time where you entertain this the most, where you go, where might I be, even if you're not wrong, where might I be incomplete? And what new data opens up? And by the way, you might be right. And what new data opens up when you just assume that you're wrong and see how you might be wrong. And what ends up happening is you get a lot better, more robust, cleaner answer. Even if you come all the way back around to the same outcome, there's a confidence that builds because you know you did your due diligence. I think on the flip side of that is a commitment to being right, and a commitment to being in control. Those are two things that I think will keep people from the life that they are capable of living. And there's more. As a matter of fact, we put out a weekly podcast as well, and there's a bonus episode that talks about the things that get in people's way, that Jason gave.
We'll link to
being
that
right.
For sure.
Yeah. And being right and being in control are 2 of 4. There's 2 more that are actually that really get in the way of people living into their best life and exploring what they're capable of, and then putting action steps in place to go test to see what they're capable of. And that's really the job of a coach. So when we're working with people in and out, week to week, we're looking for those places where people might be getting in their own way and then violating them. One of my favorite quotes that one of my mentors says is, "The truth will set you free right after it violates your flattering self-image." And
so true. That's so true.
That is coaching 101. That's coaching 101 for us. It's like, yep.
Okay, so how does somebody how do you, when you're in a, let's say, a coaching session with somebody, and this will be kind of like my last question.
Sure.
Like, that truth will set you free. That's in all things. How do people how do people stare that down? Like some of these folks that you're coaching, like, how do you help them get to the place where they need to recognize a truth, or they need to recognize something, or they need to realize, man, I'm wrong in this. What's the process for making that, getting to that place?
It's magic. It's what's the process for getting there is a lot of times we'll look at results. And so for somebody listening, my guess is that you have people listening to this who want very specific results, and or they would love to, but they're like dream results. They occur to them. They feel impossible. And now, are they impossible? Well, maybe. But what I would love to know is, are they actually testing to see if they are or not? So a lot of times people come in and they'll say what they want, and it'll feel impossible. And we'll ask them, what feels impossible? And I say, well, has anybody else ever done that? And the answer is, well, yeah, of course, other people. But so really what they're asking is that possible for me? And then we start to dig into the reasons of, like, why do you think it's not possible for you? Well, and then they go off. There's all kinds of reasons. And then we say, would you be willing to be wrong about your limitations on what all of these reasons are that you think that this thing that you say you want is not available to you? And then we get really curious about what our judgments of ourselves, about others, about money, about our industry, what are all of our judgments that we can soften into assessments. And judgment means final. It means that there's no room for possibility. And so what we really do is identify where all of the judgments are. These judgments are lurking under the surface for almost everybody. They don't know that they even have them until we start to really slow down and look. What are the judgments? And I'll even I'll ask people to write them down. What are your judgments of yourself? What are your judgments of other people, of the industry, of your what's possible for you? And now let's go to work to see if we can prove those wrong. And when we get really curious about our judgments or limitations, I guess, if you will, that's when magic happens. And so I don't know if that necessarily answered your question, but
that's great.
the best I had.
That's great. Okay,
To give you
so
right
I
now.
lied. Last rapid fire question.
We'll start it with a lie and end it with a lie.
Start with a lie and end with a lie. One of the big things we always talk about is that, in today's world, there's no excuse not to learn. Every piece of information we need is at our fingertips, most of the time for free.
Yeah.
So we're all about challenging people, like, learn, go figure it out, scour the internet till you find the answer.
Yeah.
What is something that, someone is an entrepreneur, maybe they've got a job and they got a side hustle, maybe they just start, whatever it might be. What's like one thing that they should read, listen to, like what's one thing? Like, give me something that has been a valuable resource for you that you would say.
The Kings and Priests podcast.
I said something helpful.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Man, that's like choose your favorite child. Maybe it's not like that, but you get the point. You can do that because you only have one so far.
Exactly.
Let's see. I'm gonna take your question and I'm gonna transform it into the question that I want to answer.
Okay. Perfect.
And,
classic eight.
And that is
classic eight.
Yeah, it is totally. And this is there's lots of ways to be successful. I am, and I can only share results, but I say get yourself a coach. My goodness, get yourself a coach, somebody who's committed to not being impressed with you and helping you transform your life, your business, your work, your family into what it is possible, or what's possible, what you're capable of. And I don't like do that with Novus, do it with somebody else. Like, just find a third party who knows what they're doing, who can hold up a mirror to you and create really, really powerful results. That, I mean, I was literally, my first coaching conversation ever was because I was in such a painful place in a lot of ways, financially primarily. And I called a coach, and he was so much money. My rent at the time, after I was homeless, my rent at the time was $650, and he was like, I'll work with you at half price for 6 months. It was $750 a month. And so my first call with him is like, man, I just paid rent and I just paid you. And in 30 days, I have no idea how I'm going to pay either, let alone my car bill, my life, the whole thing. And long story short, fast forward to a year later, I had a multi-million-dollar company, was winning awards, doing crazy things that I'd never thought I'd be doing, living in New York City and Los Angeles. Had spent a few months abroad, was making movies, doing things. Like, it was the night and day shift was specifically because there was a very clear, if there was a very clear before Christ and after Christ, there was a very clear before coaching and after coaching for me as a second. It was like the activator or the additive that really spiked my faith. It was like, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
And so
phenomenal.
That's the question I wanted to answer. I can't. There's free ways to do that, like you talked about, all the way up through, and there's all the way up through. There's luxury ways to invest in yourself. But my goodness, work to find out how you are getting in your own way, and that'll shift everything. That'll change everything, not only for you but for everybody else.
Yeah, it's fascinating. One of my mentors in business tells the story of, it was 2008. He had basically lost 75% of his net worth in the market crash. He had been building high-rise towers in Vegas, and it was an absolute nightmare. Right around the same time, he was going through a divorce, and he was depressed, didn't know what he was going to do. And one of his buddies said, hey, you need to go. And he booked him a weekend. I don't remember if it was a week or a weekend with Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't, I'm not, I can't say, I don't have necessarily an opinion either way, but it was $100,000 and for a week with Tony Robbins at his house. And to this day, that guy spends a week there every year. And it is he said it's an investment that he hates to make every single year. But it's the investment that is. So all that to say,
man, I'll do it for half price.
I was going to say there are the highest levels of doing that, but it's true. Everyone at every level has a sacrificial thing that they can do to really get in a place where they can, like you said, have someone that does not impress with them, that can tell them the truth they need to hear, and really help them move forward. So, Chris North, you're the best, man. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you. I love you. Thanks for the invite. I wish we could have done it in person, but
I know.
You know how it goes.
I got folks waiting right outside of this room right now trying to get in to get the furniture that I'm sitting on. So, what can I say? Dude, I love you. Thank you. We'll link to all your stuff in the show notes, socials, website, all that kind of stuff, and podcast and all that, man. Really appreciate you.
I appreciate being here. Thanks for listening if you've made it all the way to the end.
Yes. All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mike. We'll see you. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.